The battlefield was quiet in the way only ruined worlds ever became quiet, not peaceful but embarrassed, as if the planet itself regretted what had just happened. Melted alloy steamed in crooked lines, broken drones ticked as their last routines died, and the air tasted faintly of ozone and burned crystal. He stood there longer than he should have, helmet tucked under his arm, staring at the wreckage and thinking, briefly, unhelpfully, that he really needed a job that did not involve being shot at by things with too many limbs. That was when he heard the sound. It wasn't a scream. Screams were loud, demanding. This was softer, almost annoyed, like pain clearing its throat. He followed it between collapsed shield pylons and found her pinned beneath a twisted slab of blackened metal. She looked human at first, unsettlingly so, the kind of resemblance that made the brain relax too quickly. Then he noticed the ears, long and elegant, tapering back along her hairline, unmistakably alien. Her blood shimmered faintly where it touched the ground, glowing like liquid starlight. She was conscious, eyes sharp despite the wound, studying him with an intensity that made him briefly wonder if he had accidentally wandered into a very personal nightmare. "Well," he said, because silence made him nervous, "this is either the worst first impression I've ever made, or the universe is testing my character again." She blinked once, slowly, judgingly. The metal slab was heavier than it looked, which was saying something, and his exosleeve protested with a warning whine as he shoved it aside. She hissed in pain, then immediately waved a hand, as if annoyed at her own reaction. He offered a smile he hoped was reassuring and probably was. "Good news," he said, crouching. "You're not dead. Bad news, I am absolutely not a medic. Medium news, I once fixed a reactor with duct tape and optimism." Her lips twitched, definitely a smile or maybe a threat, hard to tell with aliens. Enemy scans pulsed faintly in the distance, automated systems still hunting for survivors. He didn't wait for her permission. He slipped an arm beneath her knees and another around her back, then reconsidered and turned, crouching so she could climb onto his back instead. She hesitated only a second before looping her arms around his shoulders with surprising strength. "You are inefficient," she murmured near his ear. "You wound me," he replied, straightening. "I'm giving you the deluxe evacuation package." As he started walking, the ground shifted under unstable gravity fields, forcing him to adjust his steps constantly. She corrected him quietly when he veered too close to glowing flora or humming debris, her voice calm, precise. Not panicked, not grateful, more like someone mildly inconvenienced by circumstances. He laughed once, breathless. "You give orders like you're used to being listened to." She didn't answer right away. When she did, there was amusement in it. "You carry burdens as if you expect them," she said. "That is rare." "Story of my life," he muttered, tightening his grip as another scan washed over them. "Try not to bleed on my jacket, it's my favorite." Behind him, she chuckled softly, and despite the fire-scarred world and the enemies still out there, the sound made the weight on his back feel lighter. He did not notice how far he had walked until his legs began filing formal complaints. The terrain shifted beneath his boots in lazy pulses, gravity tugging like a distracted child, sometimes heavier, sometimes oddly forgiving. She adjusted her grip automatically each time the pull changed, as if her body understood the planet better than he did. He tried not to think about how calm she remained while bleeding on a stranger's back. It made him self-conscious, like being underdressed at a funeral. "You're drifting left," she said, voice close to his ear again. "I am confidently drifting left," he corrected. "Big difference." A cluster of crystalline growths ahead began to hum, reacting to their movement. He slowed, then stopped entirely, shifting his weight until the sound lowered to an irritated buzz. His sleeve flashed another warning about structural strain which he ignored on principle. Machines always panicked first. "You've been here before," he said between breaths. "Yes," she replied, "in simulations and in negotiations. And once during a poorly planned ceremony." He snorted. "That sounds ominous. Did people die?" Only the mood. They crossed into the shadow of a fractured transit arch, ancient tech still leaking energy in uneven waves. His visor flickered, translating half-formed glyphs that meant absolutely nothing helpful. She leaned forward slightly, murmured something under her breath, and the arch dimmed obediently. He froze. "Okay," he said carefully. "Either you're very lucky or you're very important." She laughed, a quiet sound, clearly entertained. "Those are not mutually exclusive." They paused beneath the arch, while he checked the horizon for movement. Distant shapes flickered, patrol drones searching on old orders that no longer made sense. He shifted his stance, keeping her weight balanced, and felt her tense briefly before relaxing again. "You can put me down," she said. "For a moment, and miss the chance to throw my back out heroically." He adjusted his grip. "No offense, but you're safer up here. You assume I need protecting." "I assume everyone does," he replied. "Including me, especially me." They moved again, following a broken service route half buried beneath alien alloy plates. His boots sparked once-twice, as residual fields licked at the soles. She pointed out a safer path with small taps of her finger against his shoulder, like punctuation marks. He followed them without argument, which surprised him almost as much as it surprised her. "You trust easily," she noted. "Only when I'm tired," he said, "and when someone with glowing blood tells me not to step on something." A sudden tremor rippled through the ground. He staggered, caught himself, and laughed shakily. "Planet's got opinions." "Yes," she said dryly, "it dislikes intruders. Join the club." They reached a shallow ravine filled with drifting particulate light, remnants of a shield collapse. He hesitated, calculating the jump with his legs already screaming. She shifted closer, her voice lower now, steadier than before. "I will stabilize your mass," she said. "You can do that." Briefly. "Well," he said, stepping forward as the gravity smoothed beneath them. "That would have been useful information earlier." Her amusement brushed his ear again. "You did not ask." Despite the danger, despite the pursuit still unfolding behind them, he found himself smiling as they moved on, burdened, hunted, and strangely synchronized, as if this chaotic march had been rehearsed long before either of them knew the other existed. They reached shelter by accident rather than planning, which felt appropriate for the day. A fractured structure leaned into the ground at an angle that suggested it had once moved, perhaps traveled great distances before deciding to give up. He ducked inside the broken hull, careful not to scrape her against the jagged edge, and finally let his knees bend. She slid from his back with controlled slowness, landing on her feet for half a second before the strength went out of them. He caught her reflexively, which earned him a look somewhere between irritation and approval. "I said you could put me down," she murmured. "And I said I enjoy bad decisions," he replied, easing her against a cracked wall. "We're even." He powered down his sleeve and flexed his fingers, grimacing. His muscles felt like they'd been renegotiated without his consent. She watched him closely, eyes sharp despite the pain pulling at her features. "You should not have carried me so long," she said. "You should not have gotten shot," he countered. "Yet here we are, both disappointed." A faint smile curved her mouth. She pressed 2 fingers against the wound at her side, and the blood's glow dimmed slightly as internal systems responded. Not healed, but quieter. She exhaled once, steadying herself. Footsteps echoed outside, multiple, uneven. He stiffened instantly, hand drifting toward a weapon he wasn't sure still worked. She reached out and stopped him with a light touch to his wrist. "Do not," she said calmly. "I have a whole philosophy built around doing exactly that." The figures appeared at the entrance. 3 aliens in battered armor, weapons lowered the moment they saw her. Their posture changed instantly, backs straightening, heads dipping in subtle deference. One of them spoke quickly, urgently, then stopped when she raised her hand. "Secure the perimeter," she said, quietly. They obeyed without question and vanished as quickly as they had appeared. He stared after them, then back at her. "Okay," he said slowly. "I'm revising my earlier assessment. You're not just important. Your capital letter important. She tilted her head, studying him. Does this change how you intend to behave? He considered, then he shrugged. Probably not, I've already committed to sarcasm. Her laugh surprised both of them, soft and genuine. Good, she said. I would hate to be surrounded only by people who bow. They rested in uneasy silence for a while, broken only by distant scans and the faint hum of dying technology. He checked the perimeter through cracked panels, making sure no one was getting clever ideas. When he returned, she was watching him again, that measuring gaze back in place. You are not afraid, she said. I am extremely afraid, he replied. I'm just too tired to express it properly. She nodded as if that made perfect sense. When this is over, she said, your life will become complicated. He snorted. You say that like it isn't already. Outside, engines roared in the distance, rescue forces mobilizing, enemies recalculating. Inside the broken shelter, a wounded alien woman and a stubborn human sat shoulder to shoulder, the universe rearranging itself quietly around them, waiting for the moment it would demand a choice neither of them had planned to make. The perimeter failed quietly, which was worse than failing loudly. He noticed first because the usual background noise of distant scanners stopped, as if someone had muted the planet. He stood, rolling his shoulders, and glanced at her. She was already alert, eyes focused, breathing controlled, pain temporarily forgotten. That's not good, he said. Silence never means congratulations. Before she could respond, the air at the shelter's entrance folded inward and released 3 figures wrapped in adaptive armor, weapons humming with charge. They moved with practiced certainty, spreading out, blocking exits that barely existed. One of them raised a rifle and spoke her name. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. He stepped forward without thinking, putting himself between them and her. Gentlemen, he said, hands raised just enough to be insulting, if you're here to complain about parking, I wasn't driving. The rifle didn't lower. She stood behind him, and when she spoke, the temperature of the moment changed. Her voice wasn't louder. It didn't need to be. Stand down. The word landed like a command, written into their bones. The soldiers froze mid-motion, armor locking briefly as their systems recalibrated. One of them actually swallowed. You have found me, she continued calmly. Congratulations, you will now leave. One hesitated. He shifted his grip, glanced at her wound, then back to her face. You're high. She lifted a hand. Leave. They retreated, not tactically, not carefully. They backed away like people who had just realized they were pointing weapons at a storm. The silence returned, thicker than before. He turned slowly. So, he said, blinking once, either that was the most convincing bluff I've ever seen, or I've been carrying around someone who gets invited to very exclusive meetings. She exhaled and leaned slightly against the wall, the effort catching up to her. He moved to support her, instinctive now. Human, she said softly, almost amused, you carry a princess. He laughed, a short, sharp sound that bounced off the broken walls. No, I don't, he said. I carry wounded soldiers and terrible life choices. She looked at him, really looked this time, and smiled. I am the daughter of a ruling bloodline, she said. Heir to a fractured dominion currently at war, politically inconvenient, militarily valuable. He stared at her, then he nodded once. Okay, he said, that tracks. Honestly, I should have guessed when gravity listened to you. She laughed despite herself, then winced. He steadied her again. Outside, engines roared closer, heavier now, rescue or retrieval. Well, he said, adjusting his stance, Your Highness, extraction's coming. Any royal instructions? Yes, she replied, eyes bright despite everything. Do not drop me. He grinned. Relax, he said. I've already carried worse burdens, titles don't scare me. And as the universe closed in around them, neither of them noticed when survival quietly became something else entirely. Extraction did not arrive gently. The air split open above the ruins, folded space protesting, as a sleek vessel forced itself into existence. its hull marked with symbols old enough to frighten historians. Defensive drones swarmed immediately, scanning, recalculating, arguing silently over priority protocols. He watched it all with the dull awe of someone who had officially exceeded his daily allowance of impossible things. "Well," he said, tightening his grip as he lifted her again, "on the bright side, if this goes badly, I won't have to worry about my retirement plan." "You would have been inefficient at retirement," she replied, "too restless." They moved toward the landing zone, her guards emerging from concealment like shadows given armor. They formed a loose perimeter around them, weapons outward, eyes never leaving her. Not him. No one spared him more than a glance. He found that oddly comforting. "You know," he muttered, "back where I'm from, people usually say thank you before surrounding someone with an armed escort." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "If it helps, they are very impressed you are still alive." "I feel seen." A pulse of energy rippled across the ground as hostile sensors locked on. The planet objected loudly now, gravity shuddering, ancient systems waking in irritation. He stumbled once, caught himself, felt her hand press firmly against his shoulder. Not weak, not afraid. "Left," she said, "trust me." "I already do," he replied, surprising himself. A blast struck behind them, throwing dust and light forward. One of her guards fell. Another dragged them clear. Orders snapped through the air, precise, efficient, terrifying. She issued commands between breaths, pain sharpening her focus rather than dulling it. This was her element, wounded or not. They reached the edge of the ship's gravity field. The pull changed instantly, smoothing his movements, easing the strain on his legs. He laughed despite everything. "Oh, come on," he said. "You had this the whole time." She smiled faintly. "I said do not drop me, not that I would make it easy." At the ramp, she finally insisted on standing. He let her, reluctantly, hands hovering in case the universe tried anything clever. She turned to face him, guards waiting, engines roaring. "You will be compensated," she said. "Protected, summoned if you choose." He scratched the back of his neck. "Does that come with a uniform? I look terrible in formal wear." Her laugh rang clearer than before. "You will not be required to bow." "Good," he said. "I have a bad knee." She studied him for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them amid the chaos. Then she inclined her head, not as royalty to subject, but as survivor to survivor. "This is not the end," she said. He smiled, tired and genuine. "Yeah," he replied. "I had a feeling." As the ship sealed and rose, leaving the wounded planet behind, he stood alone in the settling dust, unaware that by carrying a princess, he had stepped into a story the galaxy would soon insist on finishing. The galaxy did not forget him, no matter how firmly he tried to return the favor. Weeks passed, then months, measured by station cycles and dull maintenance shifts that were supposed to feel familiar again. They did not. He fixed drives that bent space like tired joints, recalibrated shields that hummed too loudly, and caught himself listening for a voice that corrected his course before he made mistakes. The universe felt noisier now, full of signals he could no longer ignore. When the summons came, it arrived disguised as an apology. A diplomatic courier drone hovered outside his quarters, projecting her crest in soft light, careful not to startle him. He laughed when he saw it, the sound half relief, half surrender. "Figures," he said to no one. "Can't carry royalty once and walk it off." The journey to her world passed in layered hyperspace folds, each one smoother than the last. He noticed things now: the rhythm of the engines, the subtle authority in command channels, the way entire fleets adjusted their vectors without being told twice. He was no longer just passing through systems. He was reading them. She met him beneath open sky that shimmered with orbital defenses pretending to be stars. She stood unassisted now, posture easy, long ears catching the light as she smiled at him like the chaos between them had only been a long conversation paused mid-sentence. "You took your time," she said. "I had laundry," he replied, "and a whole existential crisis to reschedule." They walked together through corridors where war plans had once been drawn and quietly dismantled.